Joining me in studio now is Peter Mills from the Game Rangers Association of Africa. Thanks, Peter, for your time.
Yes, good evening.
How did the award ceremony go off last night, and why is it so important to honour these people who are really fighting on the front lines?
Well, it's very important. Rangers work under incredibly difficult conditions. They have very often poorly equipped. They are working under very harsh environments, very often with poor training, and they're the front line of functional systems and the animals in extinction. And their hard work really needs to be acknowledged.
So when we talk about game rangers, often we think purely in terms of Rhino, because they've been pretty much the forefront of the focus, and there's been a big drive in terms of protecting our Rhino. But these rangers are not just protecting Rhino, they're out there protecting all kinds of endangered species. So how does their training address that? Or is that exactly what you're saying? One of the points that needs to be addressed is that they need better training.
Well, we have lots of good trainers throughout Africa. And I just want to emphasize that we are an African organization. We have members throughout Africa. And there are good trainers throughout the continent, but not many rangers have the opportunity to get there. The rangers' main work has always been maintenance, monitoring, wildlife monitoring on their patrols, fixing water pumps, putting up fences, taking down fences. And a component of it has always been law enforcement. All rangers, from the first one to today, law enforcement has been an important component of their work. But unfortunately, with this Rhino crisis, if you were, it has forced us into a paramilitary situation that we're not happy with. We're not comfortable with it. We didn't sign up to chase people with guns. And so it's forced us into that direction, and fully aware that we won't win it with a gun. We'll win this partially at ground level with communities and with community support and so on. But that extra component to the game rangers function is, and it's almost a specialist function. The anti-poaching unit function is almost a specialist function. It's become a specialist function because of this crisis that we're faced with. And as I said, we're not comfortable with it.
So now, last night's award ceremony was to honour rangers and to really sort of pick out people for the hard work that they've done. And we saw a couple of people there in that footage who've had many years of service. And I want to pick up on that idea of the militarisation of rangers. And I want to ask you on the impact that has, not only on the people in the field, but on their families as well.
And the poachers' families.
And the poachers' families.
And it affects their families too. A lot of work is being done with Ranger Wellbeing, where rangers get support. Unfortunately, that is only happening in some countries in Africa. It's happening in South Africa, especially in Kruger National Park, but in other places the rangers are not getting the support. I didn't see the whole clip, but they did. I don't know whether they mentioned that the International Ranger Federation, of which the GRAA is a member, have a fund called the Thin Green Line that supports rangers' families if they were injured or killed in the line of duty.
And I saw on average, I don't know if the figures were internationally, but something like 2 rangers a week died. Do you know if that's just here in Africa or whether that's...
No, over 1,000 rangers have died throughout the world. In Africa, about 70 rangers have died, with the majority being killed through militia and through poachers in the DRC.
So as an African organization, what kind of challenges do you face in terms of working across different borders and with different governments. As you've said, there's different kind of training and support systems in place in different countries. Does your organization have a role in trying to unify the approach and get sort of the same kind of good quality help from different governments?
We started off as a South African organization, but we've branched out to Africa to address exactly that. Our strategy is based on three major elements, and the one is building capacity and support for rangers in terms of equipment and training and so on, networking with the rangers, and getting the linkages between the various our various chapters in Africa and the game departments and so on. It's not easy. Communication is difficult. We've got quite a few francophone countries that are involved now, and community. Côte d'Ivoire is amazing. Yeah. They've got a growing ranger organization, and you know, language is a problem. And Gabon, all the West African countries, communication. But we're working at it. We're working at building those connections. The third pillar is really mainstreaming the ranger, because we feel the ranger needs to be elevated in terms of his profile, and we are a member of the RF, as I've already mentioned, and we are also a member of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, where we table our issues and bring ranger issues to the fore.
And in terms of community buy-in, you were saying earlier that that's a very important part of the anti-poaching strategy. How do you go about, and obviously you have to interact with various other government departments and sort of parks departments, but how does your organization go about trying to get that community buy-in to assist the rangers, essentially?
Well, it comes in training, where that becomes an important part of the training, but also in programs that are put in place for the rangers. That, you know, when they leave work in the reserve, they go to the communities, and they're living in the communities amongst poachers sometimes, and so on. And so we help them to deal with that and put strategies in place that them and their families aren't threatened. But also there are strategies, and it's bigger than just us, but the conservation departments and so on, that strive to draw in communities and try and get communities to benefit from the resources and so on. It's very difficult, of course, when there are limited resources and we've got this growing population, and you know, it's difficult to dish out resources when they're limited.
Absolutely, everyone contending with a small piece of the pie, having to go quite a lot further than it immediately is. Thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us.
Welcome.
Right, that was
Thank you.
Peter Mills from the Game Rangers Association of Africa. They had their award ceremony last night, honouring some of the brave men and women who are fighting the scourge of poaching on the ground.